Berlin, April 1945. The sky is black with smoke, not clouds. What was once the pride of Germany, the Luftwaffe, now burns above its own capital. The sound of engines that once shook Europe has become a whisper. Broken, lost, hunted. Pilots who once flew with power now fly only with fear. This is not the story of victory. This is the story of an air force collapsing in fire, of young men defending ruins, of the last flights of the Reich. The world is ending in the air above Berlin, and the Luftwaffe is falling with it. Berlin, early April 1945. The city looks like a ghost. Streets once filled with parades now lie under dust and smoke. Buildings are torn open like broken books. Every wall tells a story of defeat. The sound of sirens has become part of daily life. In the distance, you can still hear the deep rumble of Soviet artillery. It never stops. Inside a cold airfield on the edge of the city, a few Luftwaffe planes stand silent. The proud black crosses on their wings are covered in ash. Mechanics, hungry and tired, try to make them fly again with no fuel, no parts, and no hope. The smell of oil and burnt metal mixes with the smell of fear. Once this place was full of laughter and confidence. Now it is quiet except for the wind moving through empty hangars. Young pilots, some barely 18, sit near their aircraft. Messerschmitt Bf 109s and the new jet fighters, the Me-262s. Their uniforms are worn, their eyes hollow. They have seen too much sky and too many deaths. They talk softly about home, about mothers and girlfriends they will never see again. The older officers try to speak with pride, quoting orders from Göring, but even their voices shake. Everyone knows the war is lost, but no one is allowed to say it. Outside, the first Soviet shells begin to fall closer. Dust rains down from the hangar roof. The pilots glance upward, waiting for the next explosion. One of them whispers, "This is the end." Another answers, "No, this is just our last flight." They stand, put on their cracked goggles, and climb into the cockpits. The engines cough, sputter, then roar to life. Desperate, defiant, doomed. As the camera pans upward into the smoky Berlin sky, the narrator's voice cuts through the noise. The Luftwaffe once ruled the skies of Europe. Now, it fights only for survival. Berlin, April 20th, 1945. Hitler's last birthday. The sky above the city is thick with smoke. Black columns rise like walls, hiding the sun. You can't see blue anymore, only gray. Allied bombers have already passed. Now the Soviet shells are falling every few minutes. Each explosion shakes the ground, and dust falls from shattered ceilings. The air smells of gunpowder, metal, and death. Far above, 3 Luftwaffe fighters circle the ruins. Messerschmitt Bf 109s, worn out and bleeding oil. Their wings are marked with years of war. The pilots can barely hear each other over the static of their radios. One voice crackles through, "Fuel low, ammunition low, but we fly until we fall." That's not courage anymore. It's habit, the last thing that keeps them human. Below them, the city burns. Trains stand still. The Tiergarten Park is a forest of smoke. Columns of civilians move through the ruins like ghosts. Women pulling children, old men carrying suitcases, soldiers with empty eyes. They look up when the German planes pass, but there is no cheer, no salute. The people have seen too much. They know these machines can no longer protect them. From the west, American P-51 Mustang fighters appear, silver shapes cutting through the clouds. Their engines sound smooth, powerful, confident. The Luftwaffe pilots spot them immediately. For a moment, there is silence on the radio. Then a calm voice says, "Engage." The German fighters dive, their engines screaming, and the air battle begins. The camera follows the black trails of smoke, twisting through the sky. One Messerschmitt fires its last bullets, short bursts that miss their mark. A Mustang turns sharply, its guns flashing. In seconds, the German plane is hit. It spins downward, flames licking its fuselage. The pilot's parachute never opens. He vanishes into the gray. The others keep fighting, knowing there is no chance, but refusing to stop. Down on the ground, a group of civilians watches the burning wreckage fall near the Brandenburg Gate. No one screams. No one runs. They just stand still, their faces covered in soot, as the explosion echoes through empty streets. A little boy whispers to his mother, "Will they win?" She doesn't answer. She just pulls him close. Inside a bunker, a Luftwaffe officer listens to the radio reports. His hand trembles as he marks the map. More losses. Fewer planes. Only 50 fighters left around Berlin. He removes his cap and stares at the emblem of the eagle and swastika. Once it meant pride. Now it feels like a weight. "We had the sky," he says softly, "and we lost it." The narrator's voice fades in. The Luftwaffe that once ruled Europe's air now fights over its own ashes. In Berlin's sky, every flight is a farewell. The pilot's last mission, April 23, 1945, Tempelhof Airfield, Berlin. The morning is silent except for distant thunder, not from the sky, but from Russian artillery moving closer each hour. The air smells of dust and diesel. Rows of damaged planes sit motionless. Me-262 jets with scorched paint, old Focke-Wulf 190s missing their wings, and broken Junkers bombers lying like dead birds. The Luftwaffe mechanics move quietly between them, tightening bolts, stealing fuel from one plane to feed another. Every drop counts now. Inside a cold hangar, a small group of young pilots gathers around their commander. His face is thin, his eyes tired. The mission is simple and hopeless. Stop the Soviet tanks approaching the city's edge. Each man knows the truth. Their planes carry little fuel, and there are too many enemies. But none of them speaks it aloud. Orders are orders. One pilot lights a cigarette with shaking hands. Another stares at a photo of his family, folded and worn from too many flights. The commander walks past them slowly. "You are the last," he says. "There will be no reinforcements. Berlin depends on you." His voice cracks at the end, but he salutes firmly. The pilots return the salute, eyes shining under the dim hangar light. Outside, an air raid siren wails again. It never stops anymore. The sound mixes with the wind and the distant scream of incoming shells. The men climb into their planes. Engines cough, sputter, and come alive with clouds of black smoke. The Me-262 jets, once the pride of German technology, roar down the cracked runway. Their jet engines scream like trapped souls. The camera follows them, lifting into the gray sky. 6 tiny machines against an endless storm. Over the outskirts of Berlin, they find their targets. Soviet columns moving through broken streets. Tanks surrounded by smoke. The Luftwaffe planes dive low, releasing their last bombs. Explosions flash across the ruins, flashes of light in a world without color. Anti-aircraft fire fills the sky, red tracers cutting through the smoke. A German jet is hit. Its right wing tears off, spinning into fire. The pilot ejects too late. His plane crashes into a street full of rubble, scattering debris like paper. In the control bunker, radio operators listen to the chaos. Voices scream, fade, and disappear into static. One by one, the signal lights turn red. Lost contact. A young operator covers his ears. Another writes down the last words he hears. "For Germany. For honor." The commander closes his eyes. There is nothing left to send. Above the city, the remaining 2 Me-262s return, their fuel nearly gone. They circle once over Berlin, a city on fire, streets glowing red, rivers filled with smoke. For a moment, the pilot sees the Reichstag dome through the haze, then turns away. He knows it's over. He presses the throttle gently, guiding the jet back toward the dying airfield. The narrator's voice breaks the silence. These were not heroes or villains. They were young men caught in the fall of an empire, flying into a sky that no longer belonged to them. The falling city Berlin, April 26, 1945. The capital is no longer a city. It is a wound that bleeds smoke. Streets once proud and wide are trenches now, filled with broken bricks, burnt cars, and frightened faces. The sky stays gray even at noon, heavy with ash that never settles. Every few seconds, another shell lands somewhere, sending clouds of dust that hide the sun completely. The sound of war has become a rhythm. Gunfire, explosion, silence, then gunfire again. No one jumps anymore when buildings fall. People only look up, sigh, and keep walking. Beneath the surface, in the underground bunkers, thousands hide. Mothers hush their children with trembling hands. Soldiers sit against damp walls, cleaning rifles they will never use. The smell of sweat, oil, and fear fills the tunnels. A single light bulb swings from a wire, throwing long shadows that look alive. Radios whisper broken reports. The Soviets are inside the city limits. Tempelhof lost. Command posts destroyed. Yet, the orders still come. Fight, hold, resist. The words mean nothing now, but they keep repeating, like prayers from a faith that has already died. Inside one command bunker, a Luftwaffe officer named Major Hermann Dahl listens to the static. He was once proud, flying Heinkel bombers over France. Now he sits in the dark, holding a pistol and a piece of paper. A last mission order. His pilots are gone, his planes destroyed. Still, the paper says, air defense must continue. He laughs quietly. A dry, empty sound. Around him, typewriters click. Telephones ring with no answer. Maps are covered with red lines creeping closer to the center. Every hour, those lines move. Above ground, the few surviving Luftwaffe gunners man their flak towers. The giant concrete structures rise from the ruins like gray mountains. The men inside are half-starved, but their guns still fire. Each shot echoes across the river Spree, sending black bursts into the clouds. From the rooftops, they can see the Soviet tanks crawling forward, their turrets turning slowly like hunters tracking prey. The gunners keep firing even when no enemy planes remain, because stopping feels like surrender, and no one dares to say that word aloud. At dusk, the city glows red. Fires burn uncontrolled, licking at the ruins of the Reichstag and the empty streets around Unter den Linden. Crows circle over the smoke. Somewhere near the Brandenburg Gate, a lone Messerschmitt lies wrecked, its wings melted, its cockpit filled with rainwater. Children climb on it in silence, touching the cold metal like a monument to something they never understood. In the distance, church bells ring for the last time before their tower collapses. Major Dahl walks outside, his uniform covered in dust, and looks at the dark horizon. The city he fought for is dying, but the sky above it remains endless. For a moment, he whispers, "So this is how power ends, not with thunder, but with smoke." The narrator's voice returns. Berlin has fallen from above before it falls below. The Luftwaffe's wings are broken, yet they still cast a shadow over the dying city. The Last Orders Berlin, April 28, 1945. Deep beneath the broken streets. In the Führerbunker, the air is heavy and still. The walls drip with moisture, and the faint hum of a generator replaces the sound of birds that once sang above. Maps hang torn and stained with coffee and blood. Every line that once showed the front is now erased by red ink. The Soviets are everywhere. The bunker smells of cigarette smoke, wet concrete, and fear. Officers move quietly, boots echoing down narrow halls. They speak in whispers, as if the walls themselves are listening. In the main room, Adolf Hitler sits hunched over a large table. His hands shake. His eyes stare blankly at the map. Around him stand the last of his commanders: Keitel, Krebs, Bormann, and a Luftwaffe representative, General Robert Ritter von Greim, recently flown in under fire. Next to him is Hannah Reitsch, the daring German test pilot, her face pale but proud. Hitler's voice cracks as he speaks, demanding that the Luftwaffe defend Berlin to the last man. "The capital will not fall," he says. "The Luftwaffe will strike back." The words sound hollow, lost in the underground echo. Greim knows the truth. The Luftwaffe no longer exists. There are almost no aircraft left, only a few Mi-262 jets, and some night fighters that cannot even take off because there is no fuel. The pilots who remain are either dead, captured, or too young to fly. Yet Greim salutes and answers, "Yes, my Führer." His voice is steady, though his heart feels like stone. Hannah watches him, her jaw tight, understanding the madness of this final order. Outside the bunker, chaos spreads through the last command posts. Officers burn documents, soldiers throw away their uniforms, and civilians loot whatever remains in the ruins. The last radios, still working, send desperate messages. "Enemy at the gates. Air support requested." But there is no reply. The Luftwaffe headquarters in Gatow has been hit, its antennas destroyed, its runways bombed into black dust. Only silence answers the calls. In a nearby airstrip, a young pilot named Karl Metz prepares one of the last surviving Mi-262s. He knows it is suicide. His mission, to attack Soviet tanks near the city center, will change nothing. Still, he straps himself in. His face is dirty, his hands trembling. He whispers, "For my comrades," and pushes the throttle forward. The jet's engine screams like a dying animal as it lifts from the shattered runway. Below him, Berlin burns in slow motion, red, orange, black. The smell of fuel and fire fills the cockpit. Inside the bunker, Hitler listens to the rumble above. "They still fight for me," he murmurs. Around him, no one answers. The walls shake as another explosion hits nearby. He closes his eyes and says softly, "The Air Force will rise again." But everyone in the room knows it will not. Outside, Karl Metz's plane explodes in midair, a brief flash that lights the night sky for the last time. The narrator's voice fades in. The final orders had no meaning, only echoes. The Luftwaffe's last flight was not of victory. It was of loyalty, despair, and silence. The bunker silenced Berlin. April 30th, 1945, the city above is gone. Flames climb higher than rooftops ever did, and the air tastes of ash. Tanks roll through streets that once held parades, their tracks grinding over fallen statues and shattered glass. The thunder of guns has become constant, an endless drumbeat of endings. But deep beneath the smoke, the world feels strangely quiet. The Führerbunker has become a tomb long before anyone inside is dead. In the dim corridor, the air is thick with cigarette smoke and whispers. Secretaries write final messages that no one will ever read. Typists strike their keys in slow rhythm, the sound echoing like raindrops on metal. In the map room, the clocks have stopped. Time has no meaning now. The walls tremble, dust falls, and yet, inside, everyone moves carefully, like ghosts pretending to be alive. Adolf Hitler sits alone at his desk. The lights flicker as artillery lands nearby. His face is pale, his hands shaking. In front of him lie photographs of Berlin from years ago. Clean, bright, full of flags and cheers. Now it is a graveyard. He picks up a pen and signs his name for the last time. a political testament, a farewell to a dream turned nightmare. Outside the door, Eva Braun waits silently, wearing a simple blue dress. Her eyes do not show fear anymore, only exhaustion. They both know what is coming. At 3:30 in the afternoon, the guards in the hallway hear a muffled sound, a single gunshot. No one moves for a moment. Then Otto Günsche, Hitler's aide, opens the door. The smell of gunpowder fills the room. The Führer is slumped over, the pistol still in his hand. Eva lies beside him, still, her lips faintly blue. For a few seconds, there is no sound except the faint hum of the generator. Then the silence breaks with hurried footsteps and nervous orders. The bodies are carried outside into the garden, wrapped in gray blankets. A can of gasoline is poured over them, and a match is lit. Flames rise into the dark sky, bright and brief. The fire burns fast, and the smell spreads through the ruined air. Inside the bunker, the news moves like a whisper through the corridors. The Führer is dead. No one cheers. No one cries. They just sit, staring at the walls, waiting for the end to reach them too. General Krebs tries to contact the Soviets for surrender terms, but the radio only hisses. The lines are gone, the messages lost in static. Somewhere above, the last Luftwaffe radio station goes silent too. The sky that once belonged to them has no masters left. In the flak towers, soldiers still fire blindly into the clouds, pretending there is something left to defend. The shells explode above an empty sky. A few look toward the city center, where smoke covers everything. One of them mutters, "Maybe it's over now." No one answers. The narrator's voice returns softly. And so, silence fell on Berlin. Not peace, not victory, only silence. The kind that follows when even the sky stops listening. The Broken Wings, May 2, 1945. The guns have stopped. The thunder that shook Berlin for weeks has faded into a strange, endless quiet. Smoke still hangs above the city, drifting like ghosts searching for home. The red flags of the Soviets rise over the ruins, and German soldiers walk out of the rubble with their hands high, faces gray with ash and disbelief. The war in Europe is almost over. But for the Luftwaffe, it ended long before this day. At Gatow Airfield, once one of the proudest bases of the German Air Force, silence rules. The runways are split and blackened. Twisted steel lies everywhere. The remains of Me-262 jets, Focke-Wulf 190s, and Heinkel bombers. Some planes still burn slowly, their wings melting into the ground. The smell of burnt rubber and fuel covers everything. Soviet soldiers walk among the wreckage, kicking empty helmets, taking photographs, and shaking their heads. One of them mutters in Russian, "They thought they owned the sky." In a nearby hangar, a group of Luftwaffe survivors sits in a line, guarded by Soviet troops. They no longer wear their caps or medals. Their uniforms are torn, their faces thin and hollow. A young pilot, barely 19, keeps staring at his hands. Hands that once controlled a fighter's stick, now trembling from cold and shame. Another man, older, clutches a small Iron Cross medal, pressing it so hard it cuts his palm. He whispers, "We were the best once." The best? No one answers him. They just sit quietly, staring at the floor as if it could erase what they've done. Outside, Soviet officers inspect the remains of the airfield. They find strange weapons, jet engines, rocket prototypes, half-finished aircraft. Among them lies the wreck of a Messerschmitt Me-163 Comet, a rocket-powered fighter that once terrified Allied bombers. Now it's nothing but a burned shell. A Russian engineer points to it and says, "They built machines faster than thought, but no machine can outfly fate." His words hang in the air like the last echo of war. Far from Berlin, in the countryside, other Luftwaffe bases are discovered. Empty hangars, abandoned planes, papers scattered like snow. Cows graze between aircraft that will never fly again. The war is over, but no one knows what peace feels like. Some pilots try to escape west, hoping to surrender to the Americans instead of the Soviets. Many are caught. Others disappear into forests, changing into civilian clothes, trying to forget the wings that once defined them. By evening, a light rain begins to fall. Drops slide down the broken glass of cockpits, washing away dust and blood. A Soviet soldier places his cap over a fallen German pilot's face, muttering a quiet prayer. The sound of thunder is gone. Only rain remains. The narrator's voice speaks softly over the black and white image of wrecked aircraft. The Luftwaffe had ruled the sky, but in the end, the sky ruled them. Power, like flight, is only borrowed, and every flight must land. Ashes of Honor, May 8th, 1945. The war in Europe is officially over. In the gray morning light, the last echoes of gunfire fade across Germany. The air smells of rain, smoke, and surrender. Everywhere, white flags hang from shattered windows, bedsheets, torn shirts, anything that might mean enough. For the first time in 6 years, the sky is silent. But for the men who once wore the wings of the Luftwaffe, silence feels heavier than battle. In a Soviet camp near Brandenburg, hundreds of captured Luftwaffe officers stand in the mud. Their medals have been taken, their names written in foreign handwriting. A long line of prisoners stretches toward the horizon. Pilots, engineers, mechanics, men who once carried the pride of the Reich on their shoulders. Some look down, refusing to meet their captors' eyes. Others stare blankly, their faces pale from hunger and sleeplessness. The guards shout in Russian. The prisoners answer in whispers. Between them lies a silence that no translation can bridge. Among them stands Major Hermann Dahl, the same man who once commanded flights over Berlin. His blue-gray uniform is torn, his boots cracked. He carries nothing but a small notebook. Pages filled with mission logs, names of lost pilots, and one final entry. April 30th. The Führer is gone. The sky is empty. He doesn't write anymore. When a Soviet officer asks him, "Why did you keep fighting?" Dahl answers quietly, "Because that was all we knew." The officer looks at him for a long moment, then simply says, "Now you must learn peace." In another corner of the camp, young pilot Karl Metz, who somehow survived his last mission, sits under a canvas tent. His arm is bandaged, his face blank. A Russian medic offers him bread. He hesitates, then takes it. "You flew jets?" the medic asks, pointing to the sky. Karl nods. "Fast," he says softly. "Too fast to think." The medic smiles sadly. All wars are too fast to think. For a moment, both men sit in silence, strangers joined by exhaustion. Outside, the wreckage of aircraft still covers the fields. Soviet engineers examine what remains: the Me-262 jet engines, the V-2 rocket parts, the drawings for planes that were never finished. The Allies will take them, study them, build from them. From this destruction, a new age of aviation will rise. But not for Germany. The Luftwaffe's brilliance, born of ambition and arrogance, now lies buried under rubble and regret. In a nearby town, a group of civilians watches captured officers march past. Some spit at them, others simply turn away. An old woman, holding a photo of her son who died in 1943, whispers, "They promised us glory. All they gave us was ashes." Her words drift through the smoke like a prayer for the dead. As night falls, rain begins again. The camera moves slowly across the camp. Rows of prisoners huddled under blankets, the wrecked silhouettes of planes behind them. The narrator's voice fades in softly, like a whisper over wind and rain. For the Luftwaffe, honor did not die in the sky. It died in silence, in surrender, in the faces of men who learned too late that pride cannot fly forever. Echoes of the Sky Summer, 1946. The war is over, but its noise still lives in memory. Across Germany, silence hangs like fog, heavy, endless, unspoken. The sound of engines, once constant in every sky, has vanished. In its place comes the hammering of reconstruction, the cries of hunger, and the whispers of guilt. The Luftwaffe, once the pride of a nation, now exists only in files, in broken machines, and in the dreams of the men who survived it. In a British-run prison camp near Münster, former Luftwaffe pilots wait for interrogation. The war has stripped away their ranks and medals. Now they are simply numbers. They sit in wooden barracks, surrounded by wire and watchtowers. Every morning, guards call names for questioning. Some men walk out calmly, others with trembling hands. The Allies want to know about secret weapons, test flights, and factories. The pilots answer carefully, not to hide truth, but because the truth itself feels like betrayal. "We were soldiers," one says, "not gods." His voice shakes as he speaks. Major Hermann Dahl sits by the window, staring at a sky that once belonged to him. Through the wire, he can see a line of Allied bombers flying west, not to destroy, but to bring home their crews. The sound makes his heart twist. He whispers, "So that's what peace sounds like." He writes in his notebook again, the first time since capture. "I used to think the sky was freedom, but it's just a mirror. It shows us who we really are." Some of the young pilots don't last long. Shame eats at them more than hunger. They wake at night to the echo of sirens, dreaming they're still in their cockpits, fighting a war that's already dead. One man, barely 20, whispers in his sleep, "Fuel low. Engage!" before crying out, waking everyone. No one says anything. They all know that feeling. The endless dive, the empty tank, the silence before impact. Outside the camps, the world begins to rebuild. Children play among the ruins, climbing over crashed fuselages and burned wings as if they were playgrounds. The swastikas are scraped off. The metal will be melted and turned into something new. Bicycles, pots, bridges. From destruction comes utility, but not redemption. The Luftwaffe's legacy is a scar written across the sky itself. In Nuremberg, the trials begin. Generals and ministers stand in dark suits, facing judgment. The name Luftwaffe echoes in courtrooms filled with translators and tears. Photos of bombed cities are shown, maps of campaigns displayed. The judges ask questions that have no easy answers. "Did you believe in what you did?" one asks. A former commander hesitates, then says, "Belief was not required, only obedience." The room falls silent. As evening comes, Hermann Dahl is led back to his cell. He looks through the bars at a single star above the horizon. Once that sky had been filled with noise and fire. Now it is quiet, distant, almost forgiving. He closes his eyes and whispers, "Maybe the sky was never ours to begin with." The narrator's voice returns softly. The echoes of the Luftwaffe do not fade with time. They live in the silence left behind, in the empty hangars, the broken wings, and the hearts that once believed they could never fall. The last flight autumn, 1950. 5 years have passed since the fires of Berlin went out. Germany is divided. The world has changed, and the war that once shook the earth has turned into pages of history books. Yet, for those who lived it, it never truly ended. In quiet villages and crowded cities, the echoes of sirens still visit in dreams. For the surviving Luftwaffe men, the sound of an engine still brings a sting of memory, a mix of pride, fear, and loss. The sky, once their kingdom, has become a grave of ghosts. Major Hermann Dahl now lives near Hamburg, working as a mechanic in a small workshop. His hands that once controlled bombers now repair bicycles and farm tools. Every morning, he steps outside before dawn and looks up at the gray northern sky. Civilian planes pass overhead. New designs, new emblems, peaceful machines carrying passengers, not bombs. He watches them fade into the clouds and whispers, "Good, let them fly for life, not death." His voice trembles, but there is peace in it too. Across the sea, in England and America, museums begin to display the remnants of German aircraft. The Messerschmitt Bf 109, the Focke-Wulf 190, the Me 262 jet, all restored, polished, silent. Children press their faces to the glass, amazed by the machines that once ruled the sky. They see metal and engines. They do not see the young men who burned inside them. Guides speak of technological progress, of the first jet fighters, but the ghosts remain unspoken. The fear, the loyalty, the madness. In the East, under Soviet control, captured airfields are rebuilt. The same ground where the Luftwaffe fell now launches new squadrons. Russian, not German. The world moves on, powered by the very inventions born from the ashes of defeat. Jet engines scream again, but under different flags. Technology survives, even when morality burns. The lessons of war are written not in textbooks, but in silence, in the faces of those who remember. One evening, Hermann visits a nearby field where the wreck of a plane still lies, half buried in the earth. Grass grows through its wings. He kneels beside it, brushing away dirt from the faded cross on its side. His reflection appears faintly in the dull metal. Older now, softer. He whispers, "We thought we were eagles, but we were just men." The wind passes through the broken fuselage, making a hollow sound, like a breath, like a sigh. Somewhere far above, a commercial jet crosses the sky, its contrail glowing white against the fading sun. As the screen fades to black and white grain, the narrator's voice returns, calm and sorrowful. The Luftwaffe was born in power, lived in pride, and died in fire. But even fire leaves smoke, and smoke remembers the wind. The camera pans upward, following the white trail of the plane across the darkening sky. The music is slow, strings and wind, gentle and mournful. The final image freezes, the empty sky over Berlin. Quiet at last. Fade out. Title card appears, Luftwaffe's Final Days, Berlin 1945 and the Fall of the Reich. End narration. Wars end. Empires fall, but history never stops flying. The echoes of war still live in the wind. The skies that once burned with fire now carry only silence. Every flight, every life, every fall, a reminder that power fades, but memory never dies. If history speaks to you, listen. If courage moves you, remember. And if stories like this touch your heart, share them, so they're never forgotten. Subscribe for more untold stories of World War II, because the past still flies in the skies above us.